I remember the first time I ignored the pain. It was just a dull ache in my knee, nothing serious. I told myself it was normal, just a part of getting older. I had seen friends and family complain about their own aches and pains, so I figured mine were no different. I adjusted how I walked. I avoided stairs when I could. I even started sitting down more, telling myself I was just being smart about preserving my energy. But deep down, I knew something was not right. I just did not want to admit it. Then the stiffness started creeping in. Getting out of bed in the morning took longer. My back felt tight after sitting for too long. I told myself that if I just stretched a little more, it would go away. But it did not. Some mornings, the pain felt sharper. My joints felt like they were rusted shut, and simple movements became harder than they should have been. I started making little excuses. Maybe it was the weather. Maybe I had slept in the wrong position. Maybe I had just overdone it the day before. Anything but the truth. The truth was, my body was trying to tell me something. It was warning me. But I did not listen. I brushed it off, the way so many people do. And then one day, I bent down to pick something up, and pain shot through my lower back so sharply that I could not stand back up. I had to grab onto a chair and stay there for minutes before I could straighten myself out. That was the moment I knew I had been making a mistake. Aches and pains after 70 are not just a part of life. They are messages. And if you ignore them, they do not go away. They get worse. What starts as a small discomfort can turn into something serious. Joint pain that is ignored can lead to severe mobility issues. A tight back can be a sign of deeper muscle problems. Numbness, tingling, and persistent discomfort can point to issues with circulation, nerves, or even the heart. I did not want to believe that my body could fail me, but the reality is, it was not failing me. It was trying to protect me by giving me a warning. I just was not paying attention. I wish someone had told me earlier that taking pain seriously is not about being weak. It is about being smart. The more I ignored my pain, the worse it got. And by the time I finally saw a doctor, I realized I could have prevented a lot of trouble if I had just acted sooner. My knee pain, the one I brushed off, was the early sign of arthritis. If I had taken steps earlier, I could have strengthened the muscles around it, reduced the inflammation, and kept my mobility longer. Instead, I waited until I was limping before I did anything about it. I know I am not the only one who has done this. I have seen too many friends shrug off their pain, saying it is just age, only to find themselves struggling to walk, needing surgery, or losing their independence altogether. I have seen people dismiss their back pain as just a sore muscle, only to later learn it was a spinal issue that could have been treated early. I have seen people ignore numbness in their legs, not realizing it was a circulation problem that could lead to serious complications. I want people to understand that pain is not the enemy. It is information. It is the body's way of saying, pay attention. And when you listen, you give yourself a chance to do something about it before it is too late. I started making changes, and I wish I had done it sooner. I started moving more, even on the days when I wanted to sit still. I learned that sometimes, pain comes from not using the body enough, not just from overusing it. I focused on strengthening my muscles, not just because I wanted to feel better but because I wanted to stay independent. I changed my diet, reducing foods that increased inflammation, and I could feel the difference within weeks. I also learned that small actions make a big difference. Something as simple as adjusting how I sat, how I slept, and how I stretched in the morning helped relieve tension and keep my body working better. I started seeing my doctor not as someone I would go to only when something was seriously wrong, but as someone who could help me prevent problems before they started. I asked more questions. I paid attention to what my body was telling me. And the more I listened, the better I felt. I know there are people out there right now who are feeling the same kind of pain I once ignored. Maybe it is a knee that aches when walking. Maybe it is a hip that feels stiff after sitting too long. Maybe it is a back that protests every time they try to stand up straight. And I know the temptation is to push through it, to pretend it is just another part of getting older. But I am here to tell you that ignoring it does not make it go away. It only gives it time to get worse. Do not wait for the pain to become unbearable before you do something about it. Do not let yourself reach a point where simple things like standing, walking, or even sleeping become a struggle. There are things you can do now that will help. Movement, even when it is uncomfortable, is better than sitting still and letting stiffness take over. Strengthening the body, even in small ways, can make a difference in how you feel every single day. Eating foods that reduce inflammation can ease the pain that you thought you just had to live with. And most importantly, do not be afraid to ask for help. Seeing a doctor, a physical therapist, or even just talking to someone who understands what you are going through can open doors to solutions you may not have considered. There is no pride in suffering through pain when there are ways to manage it. The real strength is in making the choice to take care of yourself before things get worse. I know what it is like to fear losing independence. To feel like admitting to pain is admitting to weakness. But I also know what it feels like to come out on the other side, stronger and more capable because I finally decided to listen to what my body was telling me. And if my story can help even one person avoid the mistakes I made, then it was worth telling. Aches and pains are not just a part of getting older. They are a sign that your body needs attention. Listen to them. Respect them. And most importantly, act on them before they become something you can no longer ignore. It is never too late to take control of your health. And I promise you, the sooner you do, the better you will feel. Now, let's clear some common questions. How can you work with your doctor to uncover hidden causes of pain before they turn into major health issues? I spent too many years ignoring pain, believing it was just part of getting older. A sore knee, a stiff back, aching hands in the morning. I brushed it all off, thinking, this is just how it is now. I did not see a doctor unless something was unbearable. By then, the problem was usually worse than it needed to be. I wish I had learned sooner that working with a doctor before pain becomes a crisis is one of the smartest things you can do. It is not about running to the doctor for every little ache. It is about paying attention to what your body is telling you and working with someone who knows how to interpret those signals before they turn into something serious. The first thing I learned is that you have to be honest about your pain. Too many times, I went into a doctor's office and downplayed what I was feeling. I told myself I did not want to be a burden. I did not want to seem weak. But doctors are not mind readers. If you do not tell them the truth, they cannot help you. I used to say, it is just a little stiff in the morning, when really, it was so bad some mornings that I dreaded getting out of bed. I would say, it comes and goes, when really, it was there more often than not. I learned that if I wanted real help, I had to give real answers. Keeping track of pain helped me communicate better with my doctor. I started writing things down. Not every single little ache, but patterns. If my knee hurt, I noted when it was worse. Did it hurt more after sitting? Did it swell up after walking? If my back felt stiff, I asked myself if it was worse in the morning or after certain activities. These small details made a big difference. When I told my doctor, he was able to connect the dots in ways I never could. What I thought was just an aching knee turned out to be early arthritis. What I assumed was just a stiff back was actually related to how I was sleeping. Asking questions changed everything for me. I used to sit in the doctor's office, nodding my head as he spoke, and then I would leave not really understanding half of what was said. I finally realized that I needed to ask more. Why is this happening? What can I do to stop it from getting worse? Are there things I should be watching for? The more I asked, the more I learned. I found out that some pains were connected to things I never considered. My leg pain was partly due to circulation issues. My hand stiffness was linked to inflammation. When I started asking, I started understanding. One of the biggest lessons I learned is that waiting too long makes things harder to fix. There were problems I could have addressed years earlier, but I let them linger because I thought they were just minor annoyances. I did not know that untreated joint pain can lead to loss of mobility. I did not realize that poor circulation could lead to more serious complications. I did not understand that chronic pain can wear you down, leading to fatigue and even depression. I thought I was being tough by ignoring it. In reality, I was making life harder for myself. Working with a doctor is not just about getting a diagnosis. It is about creating a plan. Once I started taking my pain seriously, my doctor and I worked together to figure out the best approach. Sometimes it was physical therapy. Sometimes it was small changes to my daily routine. Sometimes it was medication to help manage inflammation. The key was consistency. I used to think that one visit to the doctor would solve everything, but I learned that managing pain is a process. It takes adjustments, follow-ups, and effort on my part. I also had to change my attitude about tests and screenings. I used to avoid them, thinking, if I do not know, I do not have to worry about it. That was a mistake. Some of the biggest health issues start with small, hidden signs. A simple blood test revealed that my vitamin D was low, which was contributing to my joint pain. A scan showed early signs of osteoporosis, which meant I needed to start strengthening my bones before they got worse. If I had waited until I broke something, it would have been too late. The tests I used to avoid were the very things that helped me stay ahead of problems. I also learned that my doctor is only part of the equation. I had to take responsibility for my health, too. No doctor in the world can make you do the things you need to do to stay mobile and strong. I had to be the one to follow through. When my doctor told me to stretch more, I actually had to do it. When he told me to eat in a way that reduced inflammation, I had to make those choices every day. When he recommended walking more, I had to get up and move, even when I did not feel like it. The best doctor in the world cannot force you to take care of yourself. That is something you have to decide to do. The biggest thing I want others to understand is that pain is not just an inconvenience. It is information. It is your body trying to tell you something. If you listen early, you can often prevent bigger problems down the road. If you work with a doctor, you can find solutions instead of just suffering through it. If you ask questions, keep track of changes, and take action, you can keep your independence and quality of life much longer. I used to think that going to the doctor was about fixing problems that had already happened. Now I understand that it is about preventing problems before they start. I have seen too many people ignore their pain until they could not ignore it anymore. I have seen them lose their mobility, their energy, and their freedom because they waited too long to take it seriously. I do not want to be one of them. I do not want you to be one of them. If I could go back and tell my younger self one thing, it would be this. Do not wait. Do not brush off pain as just a part of aging. Work with your doctor, not just when things get bad, but when they first start to change. Ask the questions. Do the tests. Make the adjustments before they become drastic. The sooner you listen to your body, the better your future will be. And if you take care of yourself now, you will be grateful for it later. What are some unexpected medical conditions that first show up as minor aches and pains but can develop into serious problems if ignored? I used to believe that pain was just part of getting older. A sore knee, an aching back, stiff fingers in the morning. These things seemed normal, just small inconveniences that came with age. I told myself that as long as I could still get around, there was nothing to worry about. But I learned the hard way that minor aches and pains are not always harmless. Sometimes, they are the first warning signs of something more serious. And if you ignore them, you might find yourself dealing with problems you never expected. I remember when my hands started feeling stiff in the mornings. At first, I thought nothing of it. I would flex my fingers, shake them out, and move on with my day. But over time, the stiffness lingered longer. Then the pain started. It was not unbearable, just an annoying ache in my joints. I assumed it was just part of aging. What I did not realize was that this was the beginning of arthritis. If I had paid attention earlier, I could have started making changes to reduce the inflammation, keep my joints moving, and slow the progression of the disease. Instead, I waited until my hands hurt so badly that even opening a jar became a struggle. Back pain was another warning sign I ignored for too long. It started as a dull ache after sitting for too long. Then I noticed it when I got out of bed in the morning. Eventually, it became a constant presence in my life. I assumed it was just from years of wear and tear, maybe a little stiffness from not stretching enough. But when I finally saw a doctor, I learned that what I thought was just an ordinary ache was actually spinal stenosis, a condition where the spaces in the spine narrow and put pressure on the nerves. If I had known earlier, I could have started physical therapy to keep my spine flexible and prevent it from getting worse. Instead, I had to go through months of treatment just to regain the mobility I had lost. Another pain I should have taken more seriously was in my legs. It started as a cramp here and there, especially at night. Then my legs began to feel heavy when I walked. I brushed it off as just getting older. But it turned out to be peripheral artery disease, a condition where narrowed arteries reduce blood flow to the limbs. If left untreated, it can lead to serious circulation problems and even increase the risk of heart attack or stroke. I had no idea that those little cramps were actually my body warning me about something much more dangerous. I have also seen friends go through similar experiences. One friend complained about a burning pain in his feet for months. He thought it was just from standing too much. But when he finally saw a doctor, he was diagnosed with diabetes. That burning pain was nerve damage caused by high blood sugar. If he had caught it earlier, he could have made changes to prevent it from getting worse. Another friend ignored constant shoulder pain, assuming he had just slept wrong or strained a muscle. When he finally had it checked out, he learned it was a rotator cuff tear that had worsened over time. If he had seen a doctor earlier, he might have avoided surgery. One of the most dangerous pains to ignore is chest discomfort. It does not always feel like the dramatic, crushing pain you see in movies. Sometimes, it is just a dull ache, a tightness that comes and goes, or a discomfort that feels like indigestion. I knew a man who kept brushing off his chest pain, thinking it was just heartburn. One day, he had a heart attack. He survived, but the damage to his heart was already done. If he had listened to his body sooner, he could have prevented a life-threatening situation. Headaches are another thing people ignore too often. I have had my fair share of headaches, but I learned that not all of them are harmless. If you start getting headaches that are different from what you are used to, more frequent, or more intense, it could be a sign of something serious. High blood pressure, for example, can cause headaches before you even realize you have a problem. In rare cases, persistent headaches can be a warning sign of something like a brain aneurysm. It is always better to get checked out than to assume it is nothing. One pain that took me by surprise was in my jaw. I never thought much about it at first. It felt like a little soreness after chewing. But it turns out that jaw pain can sometimes be a warning sign of heart problems, especially in women. It is one of those unexpected symptoms that does not seem connected but can actually be a sign of something much bigger. The most important thing I have learned is that pain is not just an inconvenience. It is your body trying to tell you something. When you ignore it, you are taking a gamble with your health. I used to think that going to the doctor for every little ache was unnecessary. Now I understand that catching problems early can make all the difference. There are so many conditions that start with mild, everyday pain. Arthritis, nerve damage, circulation problems, spinal issues, even serious diseases like cancer or heart disease. The earlier you address them, the more options you have for treatment. I do not want to see others make the same mistakes I did. If you have a pain that does not go away, do not just accept it as part of aging. Pay attention to the small changes in your body. If something feels different, do not ignore it. See a doctor, ask questions, and find out what is really going on. It is better to catch something early and find out it is nothing than to wait until it becomes something serious. Taking care of your body is not about being paranoid. It is about respecting the signals it gives you and acting before those signals turn into something you can ignore. If you could take one step today to protect your future mobility and quality of life, what would it be? If I could take one step today to protect my future mobility and quality of life, it would be to move. Not to a new house or a different town, but to move my body every single day, no matter how much I do not feel like it. I have lived long enough to know that once you stop moving, it gets harder and harder to start again. I have seen it happen to friends, and I have felt it creeping up on me more than once. A day of rest turns into a week. A week turns into a month. Before you know it, You are struggling to do things that used to be effortless. The longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes. That is why if I could tell my younger self one thing, or give advice to anyone who is listening, it would be this. Keep moving. I used to take my mobility for granted. When I was younger, I did not think about getting out of a chair or climbing a flight of stairs. I did not appreciate the simple act of walking across a room or bending down to tie my shoes. But as the years went by, I started to notice small changes. My knees felt stiff after sitting too long. My back ached when I got out of bed. I found myself using my hands to push off the couch instead of standing up easily. At first, I told myself it was normal, just part of aging. But then I saw people my age losing their independence, not because of some terrible illness, but because they stopped moving. I realized that mobility is not something that just disappears one day. It fades little by little, so slowly that you do not notice until it is almost too late. The good news is that you can do something about it. I am not talking about running marathons or lifting heavy weights. I am talking about small, consistent movement. Walking every day, even if it is just around the house at first. Stretching in the morning to loosen up stiff joints. Getting up from a chair without using your hands. These little things add up. The people I know who are still strong and active in their 70s, 80s, even 90s all have one thing in common. They never stopped moving. One of the biggest lessons I have learned is that if you do not use it, you lose it. I saw a friend of mine stop walking long distances because his knees hurt. At first, it was just small adjustments. He parked closer to the store. He avoided stairs. He sat down whenever he could. In his mind, he was being smart, saving his energy. But the less he walked, the weaker his legs became. What started as mild knee pain turned into serious mobility issues. A year later, he needed a walker. 2 years later, he was in a wheelchair. It was not because of an accident or a disease. It was because he stopped moving. I do not want that for myself, and I do not want it for anyone else. That is why I push myself, even when I do not feel like it. If my knees hurt, I find a way to move that does not make them worse. If my back aches, I stretch until it loosens up. If I feel tired, I remind myself that movement is what gives me energy, not rest. I used to believe that taking it easy was the best way to stay healthy as I got older. Now I know that movement is the key to everything. I have also learned that balance is just as important as strength. I never used to think about balance when I was younger. I assumed it was something you just had. But balance fades if you do not work on it. And when balance fades, falls happen. I have seen too many people break hips, injure backs, and lose their independence because they took a bad step. That is why I practice standing on one foot while I brush my teeth. That is why I take small sideways steps when I walk, just to challenge myself. That is why I make sure to stand up without using my hands. These are simple things, but they keep me steady. And being steady keeps me safe. Strength matters too. I do not lift heavy weights, but I do use my own body to stay strong. I do push-ups against the kitchen counter. I stand up and sit down from a chair without using my hands, just to keep my legs strong. I reach up high and stretch my arms, so I do not lose flexibility. These small things make a big difference. I do not want to be someone who cannot lift a bag of groceries or open a jar because my muscles have weakened. Strength is not about looking good. It is about maintaining the ability to do the things that make life worth living. One of the most surprising things I have learned is that movement does not just keep your body young. It keeps your mind sharp too. I have noticed that on days when I do not move much, I feel sluggish. My thoughts are slower. My mood is lower. But when I go for a walk or do a few stretches, everything feels clearer. There is a connection between movement and brain health that too many people overlook. I do not want to just live a long life. I want to stay sharp enough to enjoy it. I know that not everyone can move the same way. Some people have arthritis, past injuries, or other conditions that make movement difficult. But no matter where you are starting from, there is always something you can do. If you cannot walk far, walk short distances. If standing is difficult, move your arms and legs while sitting. If you are in a wheelchair, focus on upper body strength and flexibility. The key is to do what you can, every single day. The hardest part is getting started. I know because I have been there. But I also know that once you start, it gets easier. Your body adapts. Your muscles get stronger. Your joints loosen up. And most importantly, you start to feel better. I used to dread exercise. Now I look forward to it because I know how much it helps. If I could go back and tell my younger self one thing, it would be this. Keep moving. Do not wait until it is hard to start. Do not let stiffness and pain become an excuse. Do not assume that slowing down is just part of getting older. The moment you stop moving is the moment you start losing your independence. If you are reading this and thinking, I will start tomorrow, let me tell you something. Tomorrow turns into next week. Next week turns into next year. And before you know it, you are struggling to do things you never thought would be difficult. Start today. Take a few steps. Stretch your arms. Stand up and sit down a few extra times. Just move. Your future self will thank you. I know mine does. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel, so until next time, take care.